The Brutalist is, we talked about it being award season. The Brutalist is a film that, from my cynical point of view, seems tailor made to be an Academy Awards darling. It seems like, I mean, because whatever it means or whatever you want to say about it, there is this correlation that if you do something that is Holocaust or Holocaust adjacent, it tends to do well at the Oscars. This is Holocaust adjacent. This is big prestige. It's 3 and something hours. It could be accused of being up itself. It has everything the Academy loves. And sure enough, it's been hoovering up all the awards. And so Holly was the one. Well, we're talking about a film called My Old Ass later on, and not to speculate about the age of your ass, Holly, but somebody call HR. But you subjected your ass to the 3 and a bit hours of this film. So tell us, The Brutalist, was it worth it? What was this about?
So I went to see The Brutalist last Friday. It is a film that lasts 4 hours in terms of cinema viewing. I have IMDb open in front of me to get my facts right. It's 3 hours and 34 minutes, and they give you an interval, which was gratefully received to do a little bit of leg stretch, jiggle backwards and forwards, and regain some, feeling in my feet.
Yeah.
It is that I'm quoting this from IMDb because it sometimes gives you a sort of good start. When a visionary architect and his wife flee post-war Europe in 1947 to rebuild their legacy and witness the birth of modern United States, their lives are changed forever by a mysterious wealthy client. The film begins with the arrival of
Laszlo thought.
Laszlo thought Adrian Brody's character in New York as a not quite a refugee, but not far off, separated from his wife and his niece, who are still back in Eastern Europe. You watch him begin to establish himself in the US, staying with his cousin, or possibly his wife's cousin, a cousin, and his very, very American sort of blondish Catholic wife, and they are a Jewish family. You see him sort of establishing himself, coming in contact with via his cousin's furniture business people, and it becomes apparent that he is a very successful architect who had, obviously sort of lost everything courtesy of the war.
Yeah.
He builds this connection with this very wealthy family, the patriarch played by Guy Pearce. And as a result of this connection, is able to get his wife over to the US from Hungary, as they were from Budapest.
Yeah.
Along with his niece, who doesn't speak, which is a sort of element of complexity to their lives. And he finds himself commissioned to build this extraordinary building, working for Guy Pearce's character. It is a beautifully put together film, and it is absolutely epic. Adrian Brody as Laszlo Toth is wonderful. Felicity Jones plays his wife, Tibet, beautifully. I say it's Guy Pearce. Joe Allen plays one of the characters.
He's one of Guy Pearce's sons, isn't he? Or is Guy Pearce's son? Yeah.
Yes, his son is very good. It is a very beautifully constructed but incredibly uncomfortable film physically to watch.
Okay.
The use of sound is fascinating. The use of movement is fascinating. So you spent the entire film, for me, on edge. Mm-hmm. It is beautifully done, but it is not an enjoyable film to watch. You can't watch it and say, gosh, this is lovely, because it really isn't. It's horrible. It is, it addresses brutalism in every possible interpretation of the word, be it, going through architecture to, the behavior of humanity. It's stunningly constructed, but it is self-indulgent.
Okay.
It's, it plays with, to some extent, it plays with tropes. It it focuses deliberately on some of the least appealing aspects of humanity.
Mm.
I found myself watching it feeling very uncomfortable, and I got to the end and thought, I am so pleased I've seen this, and I am so pleased I don't need to see it again.
You're never watching it again.
It was one of those, and my parents watched it on the same day, but a few hours before, and they hated it. Absolutely loathed it. And they said because they were looking for, they don't go to the cinema in the same way that we do.
Yes.
They go to the cinema because they want an enjoyable cinema going experience, whereas we go
escapism,
for a host of reasons. And this is not a film that is uplifting. You don't at any point in the film think, or very few points in the film think, yay, isn't life marvelous? It is a gritty and painful view of the film. And it is not it is not an enjoyable thing to watch, but it is stunning. It is visually amazing. As I say, the sound is superb. It's well constructed. It's well acted. Doesn't half go on a bit. I think it is impossible to deny that it is an incredibly long film. And in all honesty, I think they could probably have trimmed some of it back, because it is Oscar season.
Yeah, speaking about Oscar season, we just had the Oscar music playing us off, telling us that time was up for this review. And happily, because I do think this is going to do well on Oscar night.
I think it will very well. I can't decide if it's right that it does very well.
Yeah. I mean, there are some films that I feel like are very, essentially, when a film that, as I said, is sort of like Holocaust adjacent, or talks about that kind of stuff, and talks about the Jewish experience around World War II, comes out in sort of like December, January, it immediately sets off my sort of like, cynical Oscar bait alarm.
It deals with it's particularly therefore interesting as well with some of its dealings with Israel, given global politics and all sorts of things, where one could spend months analysing thoughts, feelings, and everything else. And this is not.
We have another film like that coming up soon.
Well, this is not the time nor the place for that level of analysis, but it is a very, very good film. It is not an enjoyable film. Cinema buddy Steph thought it was superb. I don't think had quite the same dislike that I did, but we both agreed on that we don't always agree. It's amazing. It's like two people can have different thoughts about stuff.
What? And still be friends? How dare you remain friends with her? She doesn't believe exactly what you believe at all times.
I have to break it to both of you, but I'm afraid we don't all agree on everything either, and I don't know how we manage.
Okay, Holly, your mic is going off right now.
I am going to give it a 4.
Four stars for it.
Because whilst I appreciate that it's theoretically a 5-star film, I'm afraid I am for once knocking it down because of the fact that it was.
Well, it sounds like what you're saying. One of my questions was going to be, we're out of time, but one of my questions was going to be, do you think the runtime is justified? And it sounds like you are not. You don't think it is.
I could have killed half an hour from it without missing a beat.
Yeah, and I mean, and quite frankly, I'm speaking as someone who yesterday, I put out a tweet about this on Netflix versus Cinema account, where I went to the cinema, I got there at 7 p.m., and I left there at 10:30 p.m., having seen Companion and September 5th in about 3.5 hours. And that is, and I saw those two films in the time, like essentially, if you started watching the Brutalist at the time I'd walked in the cinema, you still wouldn't have finished by the time I'd left. I'd seen two films, and I was like, yeah, this is how long films should be.
I agree. Says it all.
So, yeah. So, anyway. Okay, cool. Now, that's 4 stars for The Brutalist.